Society tries to convince you that being broke is just bad luck. We blame the economy, the government, or our boss. But the wisest man in history, King Solomon, disagreed. He warned that poverty isn't always a tragedy that happens to you. Often, it is a trap you set for yourself. It enters your life silently, through innocent habits, until it's too late to escape. Today, we are exposing the 7 specific behaviors that the Bible says are keeping you poor. Most people treat money like a lottery, hoping for a random stroke of good fortune to change their lives. But Scripture treats money like a science. Just as gravity pulls you down if you step off a ledge, financial laws pull you down if you violate them. You don't have to believe in gravity to get hurt by it, and you don't have to believe in the Bible to go broke from ignoring it. These aren't suggestions. They're the gears that run the world. If you grind against them, the machine will break you. We usually reserve the word sin for the big, scary actions like murder, theft, or adultery. We rarely attach that label to our bank accounts. But Solomon makes it clear that financial foolishness is a moral failure. Being poor because of oppression is a tragedy, but being poor because of your own behavior is a judgment. The Bible doesn't pull punches here. It connects your wallet directly to your character. If you can't manage your impulses, you can't manage your money. It is that simple. The first habit is the most common and the most dangerous of them all. Solomon calls it the love of sleep. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 13, he commands, "Love not sleep, lest you come to poverty. Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread." This sounds like advice for a farmer, but don't tune out. He isn't just talking about getting 8 hours of rest. He's talking about a specific attitude toward life. It's the deep, burning desire to stay unconscious when you should be alert. Think about what sleep actually represents to the human mind. When you're asleep, you don't have any problems. You don't have bills, you don't have a boss breathing down your neck, and you don't feel the shame of unfulfilled potential. It is the ultimate escape. The love of sleep is really an addiction to comfort. It's the refusal to face the friction of the real world. You stay in bed or in your comfort zone because reality is cold and hard and your dreams are warm and safe. In the ancient world, the sluggard stayed in bed. In the modern world, we have much more sophisticated ways to sleep while our eyes are wide open. We use screens to sedate ourselves. Binge watching an entire season of a show is a form of spiritual sleep. Spending 4 hours playing video games or doom scrolling through social media is just a digital nap. You are numbing your mind so you don't have to think about the work you aren't doing. It feels good in a moment, but it is fatal. Solomon explains exactly what happens when you choose this sedation. He warns in Proverbs chapter 6 that poverty will come upon you like a robber and want like an armed man. That is a violent image. A robber doesn't make an appointment. He doesn't knock politely. He kicks the door down when you least expect it. This describes the sudden shock of financial ruin. You ignore the signs for years, sedating yourself with distractions, until one day the car breaks down or the rent is due, and you have nothing. When that crisis hits, you will want to cry out that it's unfair. You'll say it came out of nowhere. But that isn't true. The robber was walking toward your house for a long time. Every time you chose to scroll instead of study, he took a step closer. Every time you hit snooze instead of getting up to attack your goals, he checked the lock on your door. The armed man of poverty is simply the accumulated weight of all the hours you wasted. So, how do you stop the invasion? You have to do the one thing the sluggard hates most. You have to open your eyes. This means looking at your life exactly as it is, without the filter of excuses. It means logging into your bank account and staring at the low balance until it hurts. It means admitting that you are where you are because of what you did. This is painful, but it is the only way out. You cannot fix a problem that you refuse to see. The promise on the other side of this pain is beautiful. The verse ends with, "Open your eyes, and you will have plenty of bread." Provision follows awareness. When you stop numbing yourself and start engaging with the difficulty of your life, opportunities start to appear. The world rewards people who are awake. It rewards people who show up. You have to decide right now if you want the temporary comfort of sleep or the permanent satisfaction of bread. You cannot have both. Let's assume you have conquered the spirit of slumber. You're not a sluggard. You wake up early, you have a vision board, and you are constantly thinking about your future. You might feel safe from the first trap, but you are now standing on the edge of a much more subtle precipice. This is the trap of the Wantrepreneur. It catches the people who are addicted to the idea of success rather than the grind of success. You aren't sleeping, but you aren't moving either. You're just making noise. King Solomon identified this behavior thousands of years ago, and he summarized the outcome with brutal mathematical precision. In Proverbs chapter 14, verse 23, he writes, "In all labor there is profit, but the talk of the lips tendeth only to penury." Notice the sharp contrast. On one side, you have labor, which always yield a return. On the other side, you have mere talk, which leads to penury. Penury is not just being broke. It is extreme, desperate poverty. It is the state of having nothing because you traded your energy for words instead of value. The danger here is biological as much as it is spiritual. Modern psychology has discovered a mechanism that explains exactly why Solomon's warning is so accurate. When you announce your big plans to the world, when you tell your friends you are starting a business or writing a book, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. You get a chemical reward that mimics the feeling of actual achievement. You feel successful just by talking about it. This satisfaction kills your drive. You have already eaten the dessert, so you have no hunger left to cook the meal. We see this everywhere in our modern hustle culture. We are surrounded by people who are constantly holding meetings to plan future meetings. We post motivational quotes on social media to curate an image of success. We spend weeks designing a logo for a company that has never sold a single product. This is what we call the illusion of action. It feels like work because you are busy, but it is actually just friction. You are revving the engine in neutral, burning fuel while the car remains parked in the driveway. True labor is often silent. It happens in the dark, away from the applause of an audience. The people who actually build wealth are rarely the ones posting about it every day. They're too busy building. They understand that every ounce of energy spent talking about the work is an ounce of energy stolen from the work itself. If you want to see profit, you must learn to starve ego. You must deny yourself the cheap thrill of announcing your plans and replace it with the quiet, boring dignity of execution. This creates a terrifying reality check for many of us. You must ask yourself, are you a worker or are you just a broadcaster? If you stripped away all your conversations, all your social media posts, and all your planning sessions, what tangible value did you produce today? If the answer is zero, you're walking the path to penury. The market does not pay you for what you say you're going to do. It pays you only for what you have done. The solution is to close your mouth and let your results speak for you. However, there is a catch. Let's say you stop talking and start working. You are disciplined and you're taking action. You are finally moving forward. But as soon as you start making progress, a new temptation will strike you, one that targets your ambition specifically. You will see the road ahead is long, and you will feel a desperate urge to shorten it. You will want the reward now. This leads to the third habit, a trap that has destroyed more fortunes than laziness and talk combined. It is a seductive lie that promises you can cheat the timeline. So, you have woken up from your slumber. You have stopped just talking about your plans and have finally started executing them. You are working hard, but now a new enemy approaches, one that disguises itself as ambition. It whispers that the path is too long, the work is too slow, and that there must be a shortcut. This is the sin of haste. It is the overwhelming desire to compress decades of growth into days of profit. In a world of instant downloads and same-day delivery, we have lost the ability to wait, and this impatience is not just a personality quirk. It is a financial death sentence. King Solomon issues a warning that cuts straight to the heart of the modern speculator. In Proverbs chapter 28, verse 22, he writes, "He that hasteth to be rich hath an evil eye, and considereth not that poverty shall come upon him." The phrase evil eye here suggests a singular, obsessive focus on the outcome rather than the process. When you're obsessed with the end result, the pile of money, you become blind to the risks you're taking to get there. You stop building value and start chasing luck. You think you're sprinting toward wealth, but Solomon says you are actually sprinting toward ruin. To understand why haste is so destructive, you must understand the biblical model of wealth. God portrays wealth creation not as a lottery, but as farming. You plant a seed, you water it, you wait, and eventually, you harvest. There is a natural law of gestation that cannot be cheated. You cannot plant a seed on Monday and demand fruit on Tuesday, no matter how much you yell at the ground. But the hasty man tries to force the harvest. He uses massive leverage, high-interest debt, or reckless speculation to speed up the clock. He tries to bypass the season of waiting, and in doing so, he destroys the crop entirely. We see this tragedy play out every day in the financial markets. We see young men gambling their life savings on volatile cryptocurrencies, day trading stocks they don't understand, or buying into guaranteed returns for pyramid schemes. They're looking for a magic trick because they despise the grind. But Proverbs chapter 13 warns that wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth by labor shall increase. Wealth gotten by vanity means money gained without corresponding value or character. It is hollow. Because you didn't build the character to keep it, the money leaves you as quickly as it arrived. The antidote to this madness is found in Proverbs 21, verse 5. The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty. Notice the word surely. Diligence, the steady, boring, repetitive work over a long period, is the only path that is guaranteed. It lacks the adrenaline rush of a big bet. It isn't exciting to save a small percentage of your income and invest it wisely over 40 years. But God is not a slot machine. He is a gardener. He blesses the slow, organic growth of assets that are tended with patience and care. When you try to violate this law of time, the consequences are severe. The faster you drive a car, the deadlier the crash. The faster you try to build wealth, the more fragile your foundation becomes. The hasty man builds a skyscraper on sand because pouring concrete takes too long. When the storms of the economy hit, and they always hit, his structure collapses instantly. He is left with nothing but debt and regret, wondering why his sure thing failed. He failed because he tried to be smarter than the system God created. He wanted the prize without the process. Let's say you master this. You are hardworking and you are patient. You are building slowly. You seem invincible. But there is one final internal enemy that can topple even the most disciplined builder. It is a subtle poison that convinces you that you already know everything. It closes your ears to warning signs and shuts your heart to correction. You could do everything else right, but if you possess this one specific character flaw, you will drive your financial ship straight into an iceberg while screaming that the map is wrong. You might be the hardest worker in a room. You might possess the patience of a saint, willing to wait decades for your harvest. Yet, you can still end up destitute if you fall victim to the fourth habit. This is the ego trap. It is the belief that you are the sole architect of your destiny and that you do not need input from anyone else. It is this solo genius syndrome, where asking for directions is viewed as a sign of weakness. You believe that because you are smart in one area, you are smart in all areas. But the Bible warns that this arrogance is a direct highway to ruin. King Solomon, a man who had access to the best minds in the known world, wrote a devastating equation in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 18. Poverty and shame shall be to him that refuseth instruction, but he that regardeth reproof shall be honored. Notice the pairing of poverty and shame. Financial failure caused by pride is not just painful, it is embarrassing. It is the specific shame of knowing that someone tried to warn you, but you were too proud to listen. You drove the car off the cliff because you refused to look at the map that was offered to you. There are only two ways to learn about money in this life. You can learn through wisdom, or you can learn through experience. Wisdom is learning from the mistakes of others. It is cheap and painless. Experience is learning from your own mistakes. It is brutally expensive and leaves scars. The person the Bible calls a fool is not necessarily stupid. He might be highly intelligent, but he is stubborn. He insists on paying the full price of tuition to the school of hard knocks. He has to lose his own money to learn a lesson that a mentor could have taught him for the price of a cup of coffee. You must accept a humble biological reality. You cannot see the back of your own head. No matter how hard you twist and turn, you have blind spots that are physically impossible for you to observe. The only way to see them is to use a mirror. In your financial life, that mirror is wise counsel. It is the mentor, the financial advisor, or the honest friend who tells you the truth you do not want to hear. Proverbs chapter 15 warns, "Without counsel purposes are disappointed, but in the multitude of counselors they are established." If you try to build wealth without a mirror, you are flying blind. In the modern world, this refusal of instruction often manifests in how we treat our spouses or partners. How often does a husband dismiss his wife's concern about a risky investment? How often does a wife ignore her husband's plea to stick to the budget? We dismiss these warnings because they bruise our ego. We say, "I know what I'm doing," while the numbers prove otherwise. We refuse to read books, we refuse to take courses, and we refuse to submit our plans to scrutiny. We protect our pride, but in the process, we leave our bank accounts completely undefended. Poverty thrives in isolation. The predator always tries to separate the prey from the herd before it attacks. When you isolate yourself financially, when you keep your debts secret and your decisions private, you are making yourself vulnerable. You become an easy target for scams, bad deals, and emotional spending because there is no one there to say stop. Even King Solomon, the wisest man on earth, surrounded himself with a cabinet of advisors. If he needed help, who are you to think you can navigate the treacherous waters of the economy alone? To escape this trap, you must make a decision that feels like death to your ego. You must admit that you do not know everything. You must actively seek out people who are smarter than you and give them permission to speak into your life. But be warned, you can be hardworking, patient, and incredibly teachable, yet still find yourself with empty pockets. You can bring a massive harvest, but if your bucket has a hole in the bottom, it will all drain away before you get home. There is a fifth habit, a seductive love that drains wealth faster than you can earn it. Imagine a man who carries water from the river to his home every single day. He is strong, disciplined, and listens to the best advice on which path to take. Yet, when he arrives at his destination, his bucket is empty. Why? Because there is a hole in the bottom. This is the tragedy of the fifth habit. It renders all your hard work irrelevant because you consume everything you produce. You are running on a treadmill where the speed constantly increases, but you never actually move forward. In the biblical economy, how much you keep matters infinitely more than how much you make. King Solomon diagnoses this condition with precision in Proverbs chapter 21, verse 17. "He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich." In the ancient world, wine and oil were the ultimate symbols of luxury and status. They were not necessities. They were the markers of the high life. Solomon is not saying that enjoyment is evil. He is warning that if your love for the finer things in life exceeds your discipline to save, poverty is a mathematical certainty. You cannot build a future if you are constantly eating your own seed corn in the present. In our modern context, wine and oil have been replaced by luxury sedans, designer streetwear, and five-star vacations posted on social media. We are addicted to what economists call signaling. We are desperate to prove to the world that we have made it, so we buy things we do not need, with money we do not have, to impress people we do not even like. This is the love of pleasure in action. It is an emotional weakness that prioritizes looking wealthy over actually becoming wealthy. You are trading your financial freedom for a round of applause from strangers who do not care about you. This habit creates a phenomenon known as lifestyle creep. It is the reason why doctors and lawyers often end up filing for bankruptcy. When their income goes up, their appetite for pleasure rises to match it instantly. They get a raise, so they buy a bigger house. They get a bonus, so they lease a newer car. The gap between their income and their spending never widens. It stays razor thin. Solomon warned in Proverbs chapter 27 that the eyes of man are never satisfied. If you cannot learn to be content with what you have now, you will not be content when you have millions. You will just have more expensive toys and bigger debts. The solution to this trap is the painful discipline of delayed gratification. It is the ability to look at a pile of money and see it as a tool for production, not a coupon for consumption. Wealth is built by those who are willing to live below their means today, so they can live above the crowd tomorrow. It requires a spiritual fortitude to say no to your own impulses. Every dollar you spend on a fleeting pleasure is an employee you have fired. You have sent that dollar away, and it can no longer work for you. To be rich, you must value your freedom more than you value the appearance of success. Let's assume you master this. You are hardworking, wise, and frugal. You have plugged the hole in the bucket, and your savings are finally starting to grow. You feel secure. But there is an external threat that is far more dangerous than your own spending habits. You can have ironclad self-control, but if you allow the wrong people into your inner circle, they will drag you down to their level with terrifying speed. There is a specific type of person Solomon warns us to avoid at all costs, yet we often invite them right to our dinner tables. You have built a fortress of discipline. You work hard, you plan carefully, you seek counsel, and you control your spending. You seem untouchable, but even a fortress will fall if you open the gates to the wrong people. This brings us to the sixth habit, bad company. We often underestimate the sheer power of social contagion. We think we are independent thinkers, immune to the influence of those around us. But King Solomon warns that your financial destiny is tethered to the people you choose to walk with. You cannot remain wealthy if your closest associates are committed to being poor. Proverbs chapter 13, verse 20 delivers a binary outcome. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Note the severity of that final word. It does not say the companion of fools will be inconvenienced or set back. It says he will be destroyed. If you surround yourself with people who normalize debt, who mock discipline, and who chase get-rich-quick schemes, you will eventually adopt their operating system. You might think you can pull them up, but gravity dictates that it is far easier for them to pull you down. The most dangerous manifestation of this habit is what the Bible calls suretyship, or what we know today as co-signing a loan. Solomon warns repeatedly, with urgent intensity, against shaking hands in a pledge for another man's debt. In Proverbs 22, he advises that if you have done this, you should deliver yourself like a gazelle from the hand of the hunter. Why? Because when you co-sign, you are tethering your financial life to someone else's lack of discipline. You are taking responsibility for a mess you did not create. You are effectively betting your future on the character of a fool. When you mix your finances with toxic people, you inherit their chaos. Their emergencies become your emergencies. Their lack of planning becomes a crisis that drains your savings. You find yourself constantly bailing them out, driven by a misplaced sense of guilt or loyalty. But the Bible calls this foolishness, not love. True wisdom requires the strength to set boundaries. You must love people, but you must choose your partners with extreme caution. If you allow a person with a drowning spirit into your boat, do not be surprised when you both end up underwater. Now we arrive at the final habit. This is the most counterintuitive trap of them all. It contradicts everything our survival instincts tell us about money. We naturally believe that the way to have more is to keep more. We think that hoarding every penny, pinching every coin, and refusing to help others is the path to security. But Solomon reveals a spiritual paradox that breaks the laws of logic. He calls this the trap of stinginess. It turns out that holding on too tight is the fastest way to lose everything. In Proverbs chapter 11, verse 24, we read a statement that seems mathematically impossible. There is that scattereth, and yet increaseth, and there is that withholdeth more than is meet, but it tendeth to poverty. This is the mystery of the kingdom. The man who gives generously seems to defy the rules of subtraction. He ends up with more. The man who withholds more than his meat, the stingy man who operates out of fear, ends up in poverty. Solomon is teaching us that money is not a solid object to be stacked. It is a current that must flow. When you refuse to give, you are operating out of a scarcity mindset. You are declaring to the world and to God that you believe resources are limited and that you are terrified of running out. This fear causes you to make small, defensive decisions. You become so obsessed with protecting what you have that you miss opportunities to expand. You stop investing, you stop taking calculated risks, and you stop building relationships. By trying to save your life, you lose it. The clenched fist cannot give, but it also cannot receive. This does not mean you should be reckless. The verse speaks of withholding more than is meet, implying there is a proper amount to keep for yourself and your family. But when you cross the line into stinginess, you cut yourself off from the divine flow of provision. Generosity breaks the grip of greed on your heart. It reminds you that you are a steward, not an owner. It signals to God that you can be trusted with more because you are a channel, not a dam. The path to true abundance begins when you open your hand. We have now walked through the dark gallery of financial traps. We started this journey believing that poverty was an external enemy, a monster created by the economy or bad luck. But the ancient wisdom of Proverbs holds up a mirror and reveals a more uncomfortable truth. The enemy is often staring back at us. It was not the government that made us sleep while we should have been working. It was not the stock market that made us talk instead of execute. It was not the banks that forced us to buy luxuries we couldn't afford to impress people we don't like. These 7 habits, the love of sleep, mere talk, haste, refusing instruction, the love of pleasure, bad company, and stinginess, are not just financial errors. They are spiritual defects. They are symptoms of a heart that is misaligned with reality. We prefer comfort over duty. We prefer ego over wisdom. We prefer the appearance of wealth over the substance of it. And as long as we cherish these habits, we will remain trapped in the cycle of lack, wondering why our prayers for provision go unanswered. However, this diagnosis is also your liberation. If these habits are the cause of your poverty, then breaking them is the cause of your prosperity. You are not a victim of a rigged system. You are a player in a game with set rules. If you change your inputs, you will change your outputs. You have the power to wake up. You have the power to do the work. You have the power to humble yourself, cut off toxic ties, and open your hands in generosity. The door to the cage is unlocked. You simply have to walk out. Do not try to fix everything at once. That is just another form of haste. Instead, look at this list and identify the one habit that is destroying you the most. Is it your laziness? Is it your ego? Is it your spending? Pick that one enemy and declare war on it today. The wisdom of Solomon is not just for reading. It is for doing. The scroll is open. The warning has been delivered, and the path is clear. The rest is up to you.